Greetings, this is Bradford, Donald, Keller, Townsend, and this is a forward research report. Why tar sands, a toxic ecosystem destroying asphalt, can't fill in for declining conventional oil. This comes from Andrew Nikiforuk, a well-known environmentalist from Canada. My energy experts have said that Manhattan tar sands project could prevent oil decline in the future. That's not likely. Here are a few reasons why. Reaching 5 million barrels a day will get increasingly energy expensive because there's only enough natural gas to mine 29% of the tar sands and a limited number of water as well. Using the energy of the tar sand bitumen itself would greatly reduce the amount that could be produced and dramatically increase the cost and energy to mine it. 2. Since there isn't enough natural gas, many hope that nuclear reactors will replace natural gas. That would take a lot of time. Kjell Akalet estimates it would take at least 7 years before Candu nuclear reactor could be built, and a Canadian parliament estimates it would take 20 nuclear reactors to replace natural gas as a fuel source. 3. Mined oil sands have been estimated to have an energy return on invested of EROI of 5.5 to 6 for mined tar sands, perhaps 10% of the 170 billion barrels, with in situ much lower at 3.5 to 4, Brant 2013. Right now, 90% of the reserves being developed via higher EROI mining, yet 80% of the remaining oil sand reserves are in situ. So, remaining reserves will be much less profitable. 4. Counting on tar sands to replace declining conventional oil with an EROI as high as 30 will be hard to accomplish, especially if it turns out to be the case that an EROI of 7 to 14 is required to maintain civilization as we know it. Lambert et al. 2014, Murphy 2011, Mearns 2008, Weisenbach et al. 2013. In a crash program to ramp up production as quietly as possible, production would likely peak in 2040 at 5 to 5.8 million barrels a day. NEB 2013, Soderberg et al. 2007. Kjell Akalet estimated that at best, a mega project could get 3.6 million barrels per day by 2018. Even that goal would require Canada to choose between exporting natural gas to the United States or burning most of its reserves in the tar sands to melt bitumen. So far, Canada oil sands have contributed to the 5.4 increase in oil production since 2005, increasing from 0.974 to 2 million barrels a day in 2014, 2.7% of world production. There are about 170 billion barrels thought to be recoverable, equal to 6 years of world oil consumption. Already, oil sands production forecasts for 2030 have declined 24% over the past 3 years, from 5.2 million barrels per day in 2013 to 4.8 million barrels per day in 2014 to 3.95 million barrels per day in June 2015. At least half the book describes the damage being done that is too long to write about in a book review, and one of the most horrifying accounts of wilderness destruction I've ever heard. But because it's not a major tourist destination in an area few live in, he expected outcry of environmentalists is muted and almost non existent. It is true that future generations are likely to move north as climate change renders vast areas uninhabitable. What a shame that an area the size of New York is well on the way to being such a toxic cesspool of polluted water, land, and radioactive uranium tailings that it may be uninhabitable for centuries, if not millennia. As author Nikiforuk puts it, reclamation in tar sands now amounts to little more than putting lipstick on a corpse. Much of this book covers the horrifying, sickening destruction of the ecology of the vast region. You may think you will be not affected, but very close to major rivers, flimsy dams, holding back large lakes of toxic sludge are bound to fail at some point and eventually spill out into the Arctic. That would damage the fragile Arctic system and the fish you buy in the grocery store, potentially unsafe to eat. I have rearranged and paraphrased some of what follows, as well as quoted the original text. Alice Friedemann, www.energyskeptic.com, author of When Trucks Stop Running, Energy and the Future of Transportation, 2015, Springer Publishing, and podcasts. What is arguably the world's last great oil rush is taking place today. Alberta approved nearly 100 mining in situ projects. That makes tar sands the largest energy project in the entire world, bar none. The size of the resource being exploited has grown exponentially. The 54,000 square mile bitumen producing zone contains nearly 175 billion barrels. There are 42 gallons in a barrel in proven reserves, which makes it the single largest pile of hydrocarbons outside of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. But although it's large, only 10% is actually recoverable via strip mining, the least energy-intensive method. And it's an energy-intensive, messy operation. In a load of tar sands, only 10% is bitumen, so the other 90% has to be separated out. This is done by dumping the sands into a large hot water washing machine where they're spun around and bitumen siphoned off. For every barrel of synthetic crude eventually produced, 45 pounds of tar sands were dug up, separated, and disposed of. To get the other 90% deep underground takes twice as much energy as the strip mine tar sands using in situ steam injected underground, so much that for every 3 barrels of intusum oil produced, the energy in one of them was used to get it. Though not really, in that natural gas is used currently. 2 billion cubic feet a day, enough to heat all the homes in the great country of Canada. Colbert, 2007. Bitumen is what a desperate civilization mines after it has depleted its cheap, high EROI oil. It's a bottom-of-the-barrel resource, a signal that business as usual in the oil patch has ended. To use milk, quinine, and strychnine, calling the world's dirtiest hydrocarbon oil, grossly diminishes the resource's huge environmental footprint. It also distracts North America from 2 stark realities. We are running out of cheap oil, and 17 million North Americans run their cars on an upgraded version of smelly adhesive used by Babylonians to cement the Tower of Babel. That ancient mega project did not end well. Without a disciplined plan for them, the tar sands wouldn't either. David Hughes points out that in 1850, 90% of the world traveled by horse and heated with biomass. Now, nearly 90% of the world depends on hydrocarbons and consumes 43 times as much energy with 7 times as many people as in 1850. He questions whether that is really sustainable. He's pretty sure people will be upset in the future at the squandering of so much so quickly, since just 1 barrel of oil equals 8 years of human labor. Walter Youngquist, author of one of the best books about the history of energy and natural gas resources, Geodestinies, points out that tar sands are a valuable long-term resource for Canada, which could stretch out their production for as long as possible, as efficiently and sparingly as possible. Tar sands are limited by natural gas. In 2006, the Oil and Gas Journal noted sadly that Canada had only enough remaining natural gas to recover 29% of the bitumen in the tar sands. The North American Energy Working Group reported similar findings that year at the meeting in Houston, Texas. If the tar sands produce 5 million barrels a day, the group said oil companies could consume 60% of the natural gas available in Western Canada by 2030. Even the NAEWG found that the level of consumption unsustainable and uneconomical. As one Albertan recently observed, using natural gas to develop oil sands is like using caviar as fertilizer to grow turnips. Cambridge Energy Research Associates, a highly conservative private energy consultancy, confirmed the cannibalistic character of natural gas consumption in its 2009 report on the tar sands. Incredibly, industrial development in tar sands region now consumes 20% of national demand, or 6.5 billion cubic feet a day. Such a scenario could drain most of the natural gas contained in the Arctic and Canada's Mackenzie Delta, as well as Alaska's North Slope. Armand Lefebvre, the president and CEO of Avera Canada, estimates that tar sands industry could commandeer the majority of Canada's natural gas supply by 2030. What are tar sands? Tar sands are a half-baked substance, a finite product of up to 300 million year old sun-baked algae, plankton, and other marine life, compressed, cooked, and degraded by bacteria. Good cooking results in light oil. Bad cooking makes bitumen, which is so hydrogen poor that it takes energy-intensive upgrading to make it marketable. 50% of Canada now depends on half-baked oil. It is very dirty fuel. Bitumen is 5% sulfur. Remember hell? Sulfur? About 8 times more than high-quality Tejas oil. That's Spanish for Texas. 0.5% nitrogen. 1,000 parts per million heavy metals, such as nickel and vanadium. Also has salts, clays, and resins. This can sometimes lead to fouling and corrosion of equipment, causing energy inefficiencies and refinery shutdowns. Between 2003 and 2007, processing lower quality oil from tar sands increased energy consumption at U.S. refineries by 47%. Miners and engineers generally don't canoe on or fish in the ponds because of 2 really nasty pollutants: polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAH, and naphthenic acids of 25 PAH studied by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and there are hundreds. 14 are proven human carcinogens. That means they're bad for you. The EPA found that many PAH produce skin cancers in practically all animal species tested, Fish exposed to PAH typically show fin erosion, liver abnormalities, cataracts, that's in your eyes where you go blind, and immune system impairments leading to increased susceptibility to diseases. Even the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers recognizes that a significant increase in processing of heavy oil and tar sands in Western Canada in recent years has led to the rising concerns on worker exposure to polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Those are the ones that make you sick and your baby's deformed. In 2003, the ubiquitous presence of PAH, which makes deformities in babies and makes people sick and causes cancer, in the tar ponds prompted entomologist Dr. Jan Sibiriski to make another one of these unbelievable tar sand calculations. He estimated that it would take 7 million years for the local midge and black fly populations to metabolize all the industry's cancer makers. I say again, he estimated that it would take 7 million years for the local midge and black fly populations to metabolize all the industry's cancer makers. Naphthenic acid, which by weight compose 2% of bitumen deposits in the Athabasca region, are not much friendlier than PAHs. Industry typically recovers these acids from oil to make wood preservatives or fungicides and flame retardants for textiles. The acids are also one of the key ingredients used in napalm bomb canisters, which are used across the globe and are reminiscent of Vietnam-era war films. Naphthenic acids kill fish and most aquatic life. Upgrading requires so much fuel that this steep adds 1 to 200 pounds of CO2 per barrel. This toxic, polluting, ultra heavy hydrocarbon is damned expensive substitute for light oil. The Canadian Industrial End-Use Energy Data and Analysis Center concluded in the year of our Lord 2008 that synthetic crude oil made from bitumen had the highest combustion emission intensity for 5 petroleum products and was the most energy intensive one to process in Canada. Baruch Hashem. Bitumen looks like molasses and smells like asphalt, sticky as tar on a cold day. In fact, Canada's National Center for Upgrading Technology says that raw bitumen contains over 50% pitch and can be used to cover roads because of its stickiness. Bitumen cannot move through a pipeline without being diluted by natural gas condensate or light oil. Why Canadian bitumen should be called tar sands and not oil sands. Industry executives and many politicians hate the word tar sands. Oil sands sounds much better, implying abundance, easy access, and it being much cleaner. The word oil raises investment cash better than the word tar. It's more likely to make investors forget that extraction requires a huge amount of energy to mine and upgrade the oil drilling. The Alberta government says it's okay to describe the resource as oil sands because oil is what is finally derived from the bitumen. If that lazy reasoning makes any sense, tomatoes would be called ketchup and trees called lumber. Rick George, president and CEO of Suncor, unwittingly made a good argument for calling the stuff tar. Bitumen may contain a hydrocarbon, he said, but you can't use it as a lubricant because it contains minerals nearly as abrasive as diamonds. You can't pump it because it's hard as a hockey puck and its natural state. It doesn't burn at all that well either. Countless forest fires over the millennia have failed to ignite it. In 1983, engineer Donald Townsend, that is no relation to the reader, made a good case for calling the resource tar, not oil, in the Encyclopedia of Chemical Technology. He argued that the word accurately captures the resource's unorthodox makeup, which means it is not recoverable in its natural state through a well, orderly produced method. Towson noted that bitumen not only has to be diluted with light oil to be pumped through a pipeline, but requires a lot more processing than normal oil. Light oil shortages are so chronic that the industry imported 50,000 barrels by rail last year to the tar sands, even after being upgraded to synthetic crude. The product requires more pollution-rich refining before it can become jet fuel or gasoline. Brute force extraction. Bitumen cannot be sucked out of the ground like Saudi Arabia's black gold. It took an oddball combination of federal and provincial scientists and American entrepreneurs nearly 70 years from the time of Mayer's visit to tar sands and billions of Canadian dollars to figure out how to separate bitumen from sand. They finally arrived at the novel solution, brute force. Extracting bitumen from the forest floor is done in two earth-destroying ways. About 20% of the tar sands are shallow enough to be mined by 3-story tall, 400-ton Caterpillar trucks at 15 million Bicorus electric shovels. The open pit mining operations look more like hell than an Appalachian coalfield. To get just 1 barrel of bitumen, hundreds of trees must be cut down, acres of soil removed, wetlands drained, 4 tons of earth dug up to get 2 tons of bituminous sand, boiling water poured over the sand to extract the oil. This costs about $100,000 per flowing barrel, making bitumen the planet's most expensive fossil fuel. The open pit mining operations look more hellish than an Appalachian coal field. To get just 1 barrel of bitumen, hundreds of trees must be cut, acres of soil removed, wetlands drained, 4 tons of earth dug up to get 2 tons of bituminous sand, boiling water poured over the sand to extract the oil. The costs about $100,000 per flowing barrel, making bitumen one of the most expensive fossil fuels. Scale. Every day, the open pit mines move enough dirt and sand to fill Yankee Stadium. Since 1967, one mining company has moved enough earth, 2 billion tons, to build 7 Panama canals. Insuit process. Most of the tar sands are so deep that the bitumen must be steamed or melted out of the ground. With the help of a bewildering array of pumps, pipes, and horizontal wells, engineers call the process in situ. Situ means in place. The most popular in situ technology is steam-assisted gravity drainage. Think of a big block of wax the size of a building. SAGD expert Neil Edmonds explains, quote, then take a steam hose and a tunnel your way in and melt all the wax above. It will drain to the bottom where it can be collected. SAGD technology burns enough natural gas for boiling water into steam to heat 6 million North American homes every day. In fact, natural gas now accounts for more than 60% of the operating costs for a SAGD project. Using natural gas to melt a resource as dirty as bitumen is, as one executive said, like burning a Picasso for heat. SAGD is very low. In 2008, the Canadian government revealed that 1 joule of energy was needed to produce 1.4 joules of energy as gasoline in the SAGD projects. Ooh, that's shitty. The U.S. Department of Energy calculates that an investment of 1 barrel of energy yields between 4 and 5 barrels of bitumen from tar sands. Some experts figure that the returns on energy invested may be as low as 2 or 3 barrels. Compare that with, on average, it takes 1 barrel of energy equivalent to pump out 20 to 60 barrels of the cheap. Bitumen's low energy returns and the Earth's destroying production methods explain why the unruly resource requires capital investments of up to 126,000 barrels, $126,000 per barrel a day of oil. That's not for 1 barrel. There's 365 days a year, so you would divide 365 and a quarter into 126,000, and that would be the price per barrel. That would be an interesting exercise for any of you students. Gasoline has been selling when a barrel of oil of West Texas sweet crude between $60 and $80 a barrel over the last 3 years or so. Given its impurities, bitumen often sells for half the price of West Texas crude. Here are a few reasons why it's so expensive. High wages. High school grads earn more than $100,000 a year driving the world's largest trucks. They are mostly female. 400-ton vehicles with horsepower of 100 pickup trucks to move $10,000 worth of bitumen a load. They prefer middle-aged and senior citizens and favor women over men to operate the large machinery because they're more careful operating it. So there's a lot of grannies out there putting their grandsons and daughters through college, or they're living at home and they're the ones buying all the food and paying all the utilities. Land. Suncor had started to clear out an estimated 290,000 trees for its steep bank mine, and surveyors and contractors staked out new mine sites for Shell and Syncrude bitumen leases that hold for $6 an acre in 1978, now sold for $120. By 2006, companies would be paying $486 an acre. Land. Suncor had started to clear cut an estimated 290,000 trees for its steep bank mine, and surveyors and contractors staked out new mine sites for Shell and Syncrude bitumen leases that sold for $6 an acre in 1978, now sold for $120. And by 2006, companies would be paying $486 an acre. Equipment. The trucks dump the ore into a crusher, which splits the bitumen onto the world's largest conveyor belt, about 1,600 yards long. Processing the bitumen is eventually mixed with expensive light oil and piped into Edmonton refinery. Shell's Boreal Forest destroying enterprise required 995 miles of pipe, 995 miles of pipe, and consumes enough power to light a city of 136,000 people. That's just Shell's operation. That a community of 136,000. It gobbled up enough steel cable to stretch from Calgary to Halifax, and poured enough concrete to build 34 Calgary towers. The price tag for an open pit mine plus an upgrader has climbed from $25,000 to between $90,000 and $110,000 per flowing barrel over the last decade. Conventional oil requires an average of $1,000 worth of infrastructure to remove a flowing barrel a day. The rising price of oil largely obscured these extravagant costs until the prices crashed in 2008. Thank you. I will leave a link if you're interested in the rest of the article. I found this extremely interesting and informative. Um, May the tar sands be discontinued. Um, I hope that this was informational. Thank you and have a wonderful day.